right, everybody. Welcome. It is Monday evening. My name is DM Gallibond, and it is time for Monster Monday. All right, welcome everybody. Those of you who've been on the stream, you've been listening to the dulcet tones of Kevin MacLeod. All this music is from the built-in jukebox function of Roll20, and you can find all of his compositions over at incompetech.com. Tonight on Monster Monday, it's July 6, 2020. I hope everybody in the U.S. had a happy Independence Day over the weekend. Hope you still have all of your fingers if you were out playing with fireworks. And tonight we're going to be looking at the Dimir Spybug. This is another in the series that we've been doing over the last couple of months, where I'm detailing how I took a creature out of Magic the Gathering, specifically out of the Guilds of Ravnica card set, and converted it to D&D 5e for a campaign that I am running when the PCs were in Ravnica. All right, so before we go any further, just want to say special thanks over to Mo over at the Tabletop Bellhop, and encourage you, if you're watching this on Twitch, please go ahead and follow or subscribe. And if you're watching this on YouTube, click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. That way you will get notified about anything that we are posting. And if you are live on the stream, there is always a section of time we set aside at the end for any questions that you have. So if questions come up, just type them in the chat, and when we get to the end of the thing, I will look at those unless I happen to see them as we go. I do have a second little screen over here that I can look at to see if any questions pop up. All right, so the Dimir Spybug. This is a creature from Guilds of Ravnica expansion for Magic the Gathering. It's an insect from House Dimir. The House Dimir guild, if you will. When the PCs in my Walkers of Waterdeep campaign went to Ravnica, this was one of the monsters that they saw throughout their time there and that they encountered. Now, it's kind of curious that some of the creatures in Magic the Gathering, you can get a sense of their scale by, you'll see them in relationship to something that you basically know the size of. These Dimir Spybugs, there's no sense of what the scale is. No idea how big these things are. So I just decided that they were man-sized. And so now that doesn't mean that they have to be in every game or every crossover or everything, but it's just like, okay, they're kind of human-sized flying insects, which, yeah, that makes them a little terrifying, but they have a special function that they do. All right, so for lore, as members of House Dimir, the Spybug is integral to the guild's espionage efforts. They are used in the game of Magic the Gathering to surveil. So in other words, you can, whenever you look at cards based on powers that other cards give you, this card actually gains a benefit from it. So this card gets more powerful every time you surveil. And this also is something called a menace. which is a newer term in the game from when I was really active. They had the same mechanic, but I don't think they had come up with the term menace for it yet. Which, in other words, it means that the creature can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. So if your enemy has only 1 creature on the board, you're able to attack with this without being able to be stopped or be blocked. Okay, when you're converting this from Magic the Gathering to D&D, you have to find a creature type. And the creature type in Magic the Gathering is insect. Well, there's no insect creature type in D&D, but insects generally fall into the beast creature type. So from the introduction to the monster manual, it tells us that when it lays out what the categories of monsters are and what properties they have, it says beasts are non-humanoid creatures or a natural part of the ecology of the world. Some may have magical powers, but most of them are unintelligent and lack any society or language. Beasts include all variety of ordinary animals, dinosaurs, and giant versions of animals. So I was thinking about these, and I was thinking about the special uses that they have for House Dimir, how House Dimir actually goes about using these creatures. And I thought, well, okay, I'm going to make a couple of changes, a couple of different changes than I normally make to the template that I choose when I bring them over from um, the uh, Magic the Gathering into a D&D monster template. They are urban creatures, just like everything from House Dimir, everything from all the guilds um, except for the oh gosh, what the hell were they called? The Gruul clans. Um, Everything except for the Gruul clans is all urban in Ravnica. The Gruul clans are the only ones that live out in the wasteland area, so they would be kind of wilderness. But otherwise, everything else is urban. Flavor features. Well, there's actually no flavor text from this. So the flavor features for this monster, I would say, are just kind of because normally that's what I like to do is I like to put the flavor text in there. Um, they're just kind of creepy spies, uh, if you will. And I'll talk a little bit about that when I get to how I used them specifically in my game. Okay, so what makes the monster tick? In how did I convert it to D&D? So this is where we get into the nuts and bolts, the mechanical features. The template I started with was a giant scorpion. And there were some changes that I did because of the role of these bugs being used as spies. Um, some of the stats didn't make any sense to keep from the giant scorpion, so I had to go ahead and make some changes. Um, CR3, AC 15, those are the same. HP 82. This is a standard formula that I use for tacking on additional hit points when I put creatures in. Reason I put extra hit points and I don't change the AC or the CR is that the players in my campaign hit pretty hard, and if I left them at the normal hit points, it kind of would be fights would get over a little bit too quickly. They wouldn't be as much of a challenge. So the monsters have to be tough enough to last long enough that they can get a couple of hits in, and at least make it a challenge for the party. Speed, I did change that. Normally, the Scorpion has a land speed of 40 feet, so I gave this a land speed of 20 feet, and obviously, since the card art has wings, made it a fly speed of 40 feet. A couple of changes here um, to the stat block. Actually, there's really one. There's only one stat that I changed, and that was I changed the intelligence from a 1 to a 19. And the reason for doing that is because they're supposed to be spies. And other than that, I gave them pretty much the other thing. The only other thing I did is I ratcheted up the passive perception. And I did that because, again, they're supposed to be spies. And then languages, I say that they understand common and undercommon. Now, the attacks and special abilities. So, because because I boosted some of the stats, you have to kind of then take something away from um, from the monster as written. So the thing that made the most sense for me is to take away some of its attacks. Now the giant scorpion normally gets 3 attacks, and one of those deals poison. I just said no. This is only going to get 1 attack, and it's a bite, and it uses the same uh, attack or damage stats as the claw. It does have a little bit higher attack bonus, and again, that's because my party tends to be higher AC. So you wanna give monsters a little bit better shot at hitting them, so they can hit about half of the party relatively frequently. There's 1 or 2 outliers that have a super high armor class. No matter what you do, if you tried to make everything hit them easily, you would just be damaging everybody else in the party all the time. So I boosted the attack bonus a little bit. I also gave it spell casting, but I didn't give it offensive spells. Again, because it's a little tougher, it's got more intelligence. I didn't want to then unbalance that by also making it an offensive magic caster. Um, so it's a 7th level spellcaster, and that's based on its hit dice, using its intelligence as the stat, and the spell save DC is 15. And it can cast the following spells requiring no material components. At will, it can do Encode Thoughts, which is a low level spell. 5 times per day, it can do Comprehend Languages, so that if it's basically working and trying to hear and understand languages from people that it is assigned to follow, then using comprehend languages, it can go ahead and understand what's being said. And then once per day, hold person. And like I said, nothing is offensive. The hold person is really oh crap, somebody caught me, I'm spying. Hold person on you, I'm getting the hell out of Dodge. That's basically all they can do. So they're really not uh, designed to be fighting creatures, although they could be. But if you have them in a fight, as I did, along with other spellcasters or beefy, damage dealers, a whole person can really mess up an enemy because suddenly you just stick an enemy out there where one of your allies can just run up to it and whack it, and the enemy can't get away. All right. So, how does the creature work in Magic the Gathering? Well, we can read the card and we can see what it does, but I'm not the greatest Magic player, so I'm not going to try to tell you what the best strategy is or anything like that. I just kind of like to get into um, some of the trivia and minutia of the card. So Dimir Spybug came out in 2018 in Guilds of Ravnica set, and it's an uncommon. The artwork is by James Pake. It was I think that's how you pronounce his name, James Pake. That's what I'm saying. I'm sticking to it unless he tells me otherwise. It was one of 143 creatures, one of 18 cards requiring both black and blue mana, one of 66 cards costing 2 mana to cast, and one of 35 cards in the set bearing the House Dimir guild mark. And the Dimir Spybug is also one of 181 cards across all the expansions to have the word insect as part of the subtype of the card. Okay, now how did I use this in my Walker of Waterdeep campaign? House Dimir, well, even if none of the players had said at the beginning of the campaign that they thought they might be interested in joining House Dimir, I probably would have had the Dimir Spybugs out there anyway, just because then they would have been something that was there, and the party would have said, "Okay, well, what the hell are those damn big bugs?" They always are like sitting up on the sides of those buildings over there, and they can't figure out why they're there. But they were among the silent and creepy spies for House Dimir. Throughout the time party when Ravnica, a couple of the PCs with extremely high passive perception noticed these creatures perched high on the walls of buildings, and they started to get paranoid that they were being tracked. And it wasn't until two of the PCs actually got confronted by House Dimir in an alley that they realized that they actually were right all along and that they had been being watched by these creatures. And that just made them a little bit creepier. So they were used to sort of set a mood, and that encounter that they had with Dimir, it turned out to be a peaceful encounter. So there was no fighting and everything. So the the intent was to sort of try to show the players how easily House Dimir could just sort of marshal a whole bunch of resources, and they could all kind of melt out of the shadows and be in an unexpected place at an unexpected time, so that the PCs probably wouldn't start anything silly. But I had everything statted out just in case they were there, because it was a situation where the party had been split and two people went into the alley, but the other three were nearby. So it could have turned into a full-blown fight. And based on the amount of creatures that I had there, I think it would have been a tough fight, but it probably was a fight that the PCs could have won. Alright, so let me go and double check. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions tonight on the Dimir Spybug, so I'll go ahead and go into the wrap up, and then I will double check once again to see if we have any further questions. Okay, so I have been DM Gallibond, and normally 3 nights a week I do live stream, or 3 days a week I do live stream. Normally Sunday afternoon we have my Walker of Waterdeep campaign, the campaign that I was discussing tonight, where the players have been into some of the realms of Magic the Gathering. They're actually now in Innistrad, so that's kind of cool. And then Thursday night at 8 p.m., I run the Sword Coast Chronicles. Right now, we are dipping into the Tyranny of Dragons storyline, and we will be in that for a few levels. The conceit behind this campaign is we're taking a survey where we're moving through and in and out of several of the published 5th edition campaigns for a number of reasons. One is that if you look at the more or less official And I know everything's like unofficially official until they actually put it in a printed resource and publish it and sell it. But on various websites, you've seen where people reference statements that the developers at D&D have made, where all of these published campaigns are happening at kind of overlapping time frames. So Tyranny of Dragons is just about winding down when over in the Somber Hills you start to have um, the rise of uh, the rise of the cults of elemental evil. And then they're chugging along and doing their thing when you start having the demon lords coming into the Underdark. And then that's kind of all finally getting settled down by the time the ordning is shattered and the giants are going crazy. And on and on and on and on. And the ordning is probably still hasn't been settled by the time that Acererak finishes uh, his masterpiece in Chult, and the death curse descends on the land as Tomb of Annihilation starts to get cranked up. So the question becomes, why is all this chaos happening in such a compressed time period at the same place in Faerun? Um, Now, the cynic would say it's all happening because Wizards of the Coast needs to sell more source books. And, you know, economically, that is the reason. But story wise, to me, it makes sense that there's actually a story behind the story that they aren't telling you. And so that's what I'm trying to tell with my players. I'm trying to tell, why are all these things overlapping? And as my players get further and further into the campaign, I think they'll begin to see kind of through some of the surface action and see what's going on behind the scenes and what is beginning to take place back there. So that should be a fun game. And it's nice because uh, aside from the little bit of connective tissue that I've had to write, I don't have to do any. I don't have to homebrew much of anything in that game. I heavily homebrew my other game, and that takes all of my homebrew time. So having another game I can run that's just pretty much, you show up, you open a book, and you play until you get to the stopping point, and then you kind of know where okay, we're going to transition from this story to the next story, and then there's a few scenes that I have sprinkled in here and there for the players to let them know about the deeper story. Aside from those live streams, you can find all of my daily D&D stuff over on my YouTube channel, and I do have a Patreon out there. So I know this 2020 has been tough on a lot of people, but if you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel and you want to give some support, then it'd be great to have you sign up on the Patreon. All right, everybody. Well, I don't see any questions from the chat tonight, so I will thank you very much for watching either on Twitch or on YouTube, and I will sign off, as I always do, by just reminding you to watch out for the monsters under the bed. Good night, everyone.